Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this GTWN CMS webinar on digital defense. This is the first webinar that we will be devoting to digital defense. We are at a critical time in our world, in our nation, our various nations, and in a fight for democracy. NATO has consistently represented the allies in a fight for democracy. And we have never had to fight as much as we are doing today when NATO has a budget of $10 billion to fight for democracy. We are extremely proud to be able to welcome Stacy Cummings today, the General Manager of the NATO Support and Procurement Agency. Stacy is remarkable in many ways, but one of the most remarkable things that I really think about her is that she decided to study logistics and supply chain management at a time when not very many people were doing that. And she has been asked by the United States government to work for them at the Department of Defense in very high positions. She has attended the Industrial War College. She has numerous awards, and it is no wonder that today she heads up the entire support and procurement agency for NATO for the world. Stacy, thank you for giving a keynote speech to us today, and we are looking forward to hearing from you, to hearing how we can support you and NATO. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. That was very kind of you. Candace, lovely to see you, and thank you for the invitation to participate. Dora and Olga as well, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. I really value these networking initiatives, and I really applaud the mission and focus on representation of the Global Telecom Women's Network. Indeed, representation does matter, and establishing these types of networks is just so essential. And so I appreciate you for creating a platform like this for dialogue, and I really believe that this is a building block for opportunities, but also for innovation. So today's theme is digital defense, and of course, this is particularly timely, as warfare has recently evolved across all domains, but especially across the digital sphere, where space and cyber play a critical role in the security and prosperity for NATO nations. Space is truly essential to our daily lives, enabling everything from mobile phones to banking services, navigation, even weather forecasts. Space is also essential to the alliance's deterrence and defense, including our ability to communicate, navigate, track forces, detect missile launches, and support situational awareness, communication, of course, and decision-making. Over the past decade, the commercial space sector has seen tremendous growth and innovation, with new technologies and services emerging at an unprecedented pace. In 2019, NATO allies recognized the critical importance that space plays for alliance deterrence and defense, and made it NATO's 5th operational domain alongside sea, air, land, and cyber. NATO also adopted a space policy to enhance cooperation, allowing allies to pool their expertise and resources to develop robust space capabilities. Making space an operational domain helps to ensure that all aspects of deterrence and defense are taken into account to ensure the best protection of the alliance. This is even more relevant today, where the space environment is fundamentally changing. While space started as a strategic and operational domain, Today, it provides operational and tactical advantages on the battlefield. Space is becoming more crowded and competitive, and satellites are vulnerable to interference. Jamming and spoofing of satellites has become a regular occurrence. This new strategic and tactical dimension came into stark focus with Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine and their large-scale invasion on the 24th of February in 2022. Today, space is integrated into military planning, exercises, joint and multi-domain operations. The requirement for technology and assets in the space domain has consequently increased. At present, NATO countries operate approximately 2,000 satellites, inclusive of both civilian, which is a national or a multinational civilian element, commercial, military, or intelligence assets. Attacks on allied space systems could inflict serious damage on our societies, our economies, and to our security. And so some countries have developed and tested a wide range of counter-space technologies that could restrict allies' access to and freedom to operate in space. And this is where digital defense shows its importance and the need to invest in related capabilities. To allow NATO forces to communicate more securely and quickly, NATO is investing over €1 billion in procuring satellite communication services during the period between 2020 and 2034. This is the alliance's biggest ever investment in satellite communications, and it will enable more resilient communications between deployed forces and commands. This means understanding what is happening in space at all times, ensuring timely exchange of space data, and ensuring that NATO has access to allies' capabilities in space services, such as hours of satellite communication or data for imagery when it's needed. Allies are setting up national space centers, and they're investing in new technologies to increase their space capabilities, make them more resilient and less susceptible to jamming and other interference. In 2020, allies decided to set up a NATO space center in Ramstein, Germany, to support NATO operations, missions, and activities, share information about potential threats, and to support exercises and planning. The Space Center coordinates with national space entities to ensure that NATO commanders have access to required space data and services. At the Washington Summit, which is coming up next month, allies will take steps to further strengthen the capacity of the Space Center. Another institution, the NATO Space Center of Excellence, is based in Toulouse, France, and it's an independent multinational body that supports NATO's approach to space and contributes to the development of space-related doctrine, training, and research. I'd like to reiterate that NATO's approach to space is defensive and fully in line with international law. Allies will continue to support international efforts, including at the United Nations, to develop rules and principles of responsible space behaviors. These initiatives require multinational efforts and a close partnership between nations and industry. And this is where the NATO Support and Procurement Agency, which we call NSPA, plays a key role. NSPA is NATO's lead organization for acquisition, sustainment, and support. The agency has been proven to be an efficient, effective, and responsive platform for durable partnerships between industry and governments to support the mission of NATO, allied nations, and partners. More than ever, commonality of requirements plays a key role, not only in supporting NATO missions, but also civilian populations across the allies. This is true across all domains, but it is particularly true for space and for cyber. NSPA can act as a facilitator between industry and nations, enabling interoperability and a forum for multinational cooperation where industry plays a major role. We have a unique support structure, and that is called support partnerships. We established a support partnership recently between Luxembourg and the United States. And this unique multinational cooperation mechanism, which is established on the initiative of 2 or more NATO nations, enables consolidation and centralization of requirements and allocating production capacity according to the nation's priorities. Through multinational, multi-year acquisition programs and through collaborative frameworks, such as our support partnerships, NSPA is well positioned to help allies identify and develop multinational cooperative projects to deliver key defense capabilities that are required to face the security challenges we have today and to support defense and security now and in the future. NSPA currently has 38 support partnerships in place, and we anticipate that number expanding this year and in future years. Our business model and expertise is well suited for an increased role in acquisition and support in the space domain. In 2022, we opened a new era of space cooperation within NATO, establishing the Global Commercially Contracted Satellite Communications Support Partnership, which is a very long name for a support partnership. And that partnership is between Luxembourg and the United States as the founding members. For short, we call it the SATCOM Support Partnership. So the SATCOM Support Partnership is an example of best practice for collaboration in space. This initiative will enable participating nations to jointly manage, through the agency, a full range of satellite communication services, generating synergies and economies of scale that are not achievable solely through national processes. The result is reduced costs, reduced logistics footprint, with common and efficient support under a proven legal framework. The Medium Earth Orbit Global Services Program will be the first system contracted through this framework, and it will provide critical resilient SATCOM capabilities for Luxembourg, its partners, and NATO for defense, security, and disaster recovery. The system will leverage SES's O3b mPOWER satellite technology. In 2023, 18 NATO allies launched a project that is a civil and military cooperation initiative called Alliance Persistence Surveillance from Space, or APSS. This initiative is led by our counterparts at the NATO Communication and Information Agency, also called the NCI agency. This is an important element in the implementation of the NATO space policy. It establishes a virtual constellation, AKIA, of both national and commercial space assets, such as satellites, leveraging the latest advances in commercial space technology. 2 characteristics of the APSS initiative stand out. First, its multinational cooperative nature leverages existing and future space assets in allied countries and connects them in the NATO virtual constellation. And second, its data-centric approach will allow APSS to integrate data from both government-owned assets as well as commercial space contributions. This multinational and collaborative approach will enable NATO allies who lack space capabilities to access space-based intelligence and communications while improving and expanding information sharing across the alliance. This approach will enhance interoperability by pushing allies towards the use of common platforms. APSS perfectly illustrates the benefits of multinational partnerships for digital defense. By the Washington Summit, which is just in a couple of weeks, NATO's APSS, currently led by 19 allies, will be ready to deliver national and commercial space-based imagery necessary to improve NATO's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capability and enhance the alliance's decision-making. At the NATO Washington Summit, allies will officially initiate this and other initiatives, taking further steps to enhance NATO's space domain awareness, accelerate the integration of space into NATO's planning, exercises, and operations, and elevate space partnerships around the globe. With space playing such a critical role in digital defense for the security and prosperity of NATO nations, so does cyber. Today, cyber is driving strategic competition, and it too has become an integral part of modern warfare. Russia's war against Ukraine has highlighted the extent to which not only space, but also cyber is part of a modern conflict before, during, and after the kinetic phase of hostilities. We have seen Russia use cyberspace to prepare its invasion, shape the information space, and attack Ukraine's critical infrastructure. We have seen them use cyber as a weapon from the start. In the hours immediately before Russian forces crossed the border, cyber attacks struck Ukrainian government departments, the military, as well as emergency services. This has demonstrated that preparation can never begin too early and that resilience is critical. It has also shown us that cyberspace can only be defended and secured effectively in a collaborative way, including the private sector. Today, NATO's IT infrastructure covers over 60 different locations, from the political headquarters in Brussels through military commands to the sites of NATO operations. More than 100,000 people rely on NATO networks. A 200-strong cyber team defends NATO networks around the clock as a first line of defense. It prevents intrusions, detects, analyzes, and shares information on cyber threats, prevents data loss, and conducts forensics. NSPA, as a NATO body, places higher demands on cybersecurity than many commercial organizations do. The cybersecurity of our IT systems and the protection of NATO information must be guaranteed to the maximum extent possible. NSPA aligns cyber risk assessments and threat monitoring to this larger attack surface that includes supply chain as well as critical supporting infrastructure of defense systems. We have access to organic cyber expertise to act proactively and reactively to digital threats. And where necessary, we leverage external expertise such as the NATO Cybersecurity Center and other institutions and organizations. The agency also develops and uses tools and procedures compliant to NATO's ICT security policy and tools. This enables the adoption of new innovative developments while safeguarding the necessary security of our core activities. For example, we are developing initiatives in the context of digital engineering, adopting a holistic approach to the application of digital acquisition and digital engineering across our domains. Our vision for digital engineering is the integration of all physical and digital activities from conception to retirement in a central digital and secure place. We are pursuing 3 work strands in this domain. First, processes, the process of requirements generation, documentation, program and project management. On the physical infrastructure side, installation and configuration, and then from a cybersecurity perspective, accreditation and secured interconnection. Through this and other means, NSPA contributes to NATO's resilience in the cyber domain. And this is all about defense, not offense. NATO is committed to defending all cyberspace as well as in other domains. So cyber defense is part of NATO's core task of collective defense. A serious cyber attack or the cumulative impact of several malicious cyber activities could be considered in certain circumstances as an armed attack and could trigger an Article 5, the collective defense clause of our founding treaty. Whether a cyber attack or a campaign of malicious cyber activities passes the threshold of an Article 5 is a political decision for NATO allies. And we won't speculate on how a serious cyber attack and how serious it would have to be in order to trigger that type of response. Any response could include diplomatic and economic sanctions, cyber measures, or even conventional forces, depending on the nature of the attack. Allies have agreed to integrate their national cyber capabilities into NATO operations. NATO and allies share information about cyber threats in real time, which helps identify those responsible and respond accordingly. NATO reserves the right to respond accordingly and to employ the full range of capabilities, including considering collective responses. Whatever the response, NATO will continue to follow the principle of restraint and act in accordance with international law, and has no plans to develop its own offensive cyber capabilities. Since 2012, NATO's cyber rapid reaction teams have been on standby 24 hours a day to assist allies, if so requested and approved, in their response to cyber attacks. The teams are made of a permanent core of specialized experts who can coordinate and execute cyber response missions. NATO or national experts can join them as appropriate based on the nature and requirements of the missions. Once activated, these rapid reaction teams are able to respond within 24 hours. In 2016, NATO leaders adopted a cyber defense pledge to boost national cyber defenses and resilience to cyber threats, focusing on everything that needs to happen before incidents take place. 6 years since the adoption of the pledge, allies have taken significant steps to strengthen their cyber capabilities, improve their legal and institutional frameworks, and increase their resources. At last year's Vilnius summit, allies agreed to enhance the cyber defense pledge. The enhanced pledge includes new national goals, defining requirements to improve national cyber resilience, and establishing benchmarks to measure national cyber defense preparedness and reduce gaps across the alliance. Allies endorsed a new concept to enhance NATO's ability to tackle cyber threats, both politically and militarily, as well as technically, in an integrated manner. This means having the required capabilities, civilian and military, to proactively deter and defend our cyberspace, including NATO's own networks, and counter the full spectrum of cyber threats. It also means building resilience among our societies and establishing reliable and secure communication systems, including 5G networks, and working closely with the industry to develop the technologies and capabilities we need to proactively defend ourselves and our networks. This also underscores the importance of training, for example, through exercises like Cyber Coalition and the EU's exercise Cyber Europe. In the case of Ukraine, for example, NATO has been working to strengthen Ukraine's cyber defenses for years, with training and information and intelligence sharing. This has helped enhance Ukraine's resilience and ability to defend itself against Russia's attacks. For example, Ukraine has access to NATO's malware information sharing platform, where experts exchange information about threats and responses in real time. In 2022, Ukraine also joined the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence in Tallinn as a contributing participant. Ukraine takes part in NATO's cyber exercises, including Exercise Cyber Coalition this year. Digital defense across cyber and space is about close multinational partnership, education, and training. The reality is that ultimately no country or continent can face our current global challenges alone. Close collaboration with the commercial space sector and effective integration of commercial space solutions also plays a key role in improving the alliance's resilience and maintaining our technological edge. Defending against and responding to malicious cyber activities requires cooperation with industry because it has crucial expertise. NATO has invested in its ties with the private sector for several years, including in the areas of information sharing and incident response. The private sector also possesses crucial technical information that allows us to call out malicious behavior in cyberspace in a timely manner. Today more than ever, there can be no defense, no deterrence, and no security without industry. So we need to talk, train, and plan more together to make our systems harder to damage, more resilient, and quicker to bounce back, and to avoid relying on equipment supplied by authoritarian regimes to build our digital backbone for the future. Cyber is driving strategic competition. Adversaries are challenging our interests, values, and security. They are determined to shape the future of cyberspace in their own image, with little transparency and no regard for human rights. That is why we must proactively shape cyberspace in line with our values and further integrate our cyber efforts across the political, military, and technical level. We must avoid relying on equipment supplied by our adversaries to build our digital backbone for the future. We have seen the results of relying on Russia for our energy supply. We should not repeat this mistake by relying on China to provide our technology for our critical networks. And this is why we need to work with every level of the private sector to make our systems more resilient. We need to further enhance our cooperation with our close partners, because cyberspace can only be defended and secured effectively in a collaborative way. I'm going to provide an example, and that is NATO's Digital Ocean program, because this initiative illustrates the perfect combination of the partnership with industry required when technology overlaps across space and cyber into a multi-domain ecosystem. NSPA is a member of the Digital Ocean Tiger team, aimed at creating a digital ocean roadmap and its structure. This includes identifying a capability delivery strategy of digital ocean initiatives and identifying funding sources. We are also exploring the utilization of a modular open system approach, a technical and business strategy for designing affordable and adaptable systems. We're also looking into model-based systems engineering, which is a formalized methodology used to support the requirements, design, analysis, verification, and validation associated with the development of complex systems. Incidentally, we are applying the same approach to our support to the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic, or DIANA, and our effort to inject innovation into everything we do. As part of a wider effort to deliver greater productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness, we look to foster innovation and change across our entire portfolio. Innovation and change are catalysts for business growth and development, and the agency investigates new ideas in technology, processes, and new ways of working. And we're ready to capitalize on those deemed to offer improvements in the commercial space, especially those small and medium-sized businesses. The ambition of the agency is to be a smart follower of the latest developments and best practices to ensure we're well placed to exploit new opportunities and optimize the current support to the benefit of our customers. In line with this, in January of this year, we established a new acquisition program directorate that will manage current and near future acquisition programs that are at the very, very beginning of their life cycle in the concept development and pre-production stage. Our new acquisition directorate will particularly focus on open system architecture, will be supported by digital acquisition and engineering tools and processes. These systems engineering concepts will enhance interoperability and efficiency for our customers of this newly established acquisition pillar. Our new acquisition directorate is establishing innovative approaches to acquisition and capability development while implementing effective policies and regulations to support the delivery of innovative projects. This will also provide us with the necessary flexibility and responsiveness to support existing areas of activities, as well as rapid acquisition, early adoption, or acquisition of less technically mature capabilities. One fantastic example of this is the Alliance Future Surveillance and Control Program. This multi-generational digital transformation program is designed to support multi-domain operations for decades to come. AFSC is NATO's largest and most complex capability development initiative to date, and we at NSPA are managing the concept stage. AFSC is making rapid progress and serves as an example of multinational collaboration to generate innovative and future-proof capabilities based on common requirements. In January of this year, NATO's North Atlantic Council agreed to a report by national armaments directors that sets out the findings of the study phase of the AFSC concept. The study phase, which took place from 2019 to 2023, was a two-step process that saw strong industry participation across NATO nations. Through both the Digital Ocean and AFSC programs, we have a unique opportunity to identify synergies and opportunities at the early stage of concept development, leveraging a multi-layered digital defense ecosystem based on both space and cyber. So, as I conclude, I want to reiterate that NATO, through NSPA, can act collectively, leveraging common funds to procure or develop technologies and create partnerships among allies with industry to find cost-effective and efficient solutions for NATO and NATO partners' defense needs. We can do so by fostering greater interoperability and commonality within a common NATO ecosystem while respecting and safeguarding the sovereignty of nations involved. We'll continue to work to ensure that NATO and allied nations obtain the best capabilities in cyber, space, and all military domains at the best value. It is by working together that we will form a digital defense shield to safeguard the security of over 1 billion people across all domains. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion.
So thank you so much, Stacy. You have put together a very large and rich canvas for us to speak about. I know that Olga and I have many questions, and I'm sure our audience does too. And please, dear audience from around the world, please put your questions into the chat and they will be relayed to us. I'm going to start though by asking someone who is obviously very personally involved, and it is always, those human stories that make war really so poignant and so relevant. And this, we are very pleased to have with us Olga Belyakova. She is a partner with CMS. She is from Kiev, and she has written the Digital Defense Report. So Olga, if you would be so kind as to share your comments on what Stacy has shared with us now.
Yes, thank you, Candice. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you very much, everyone who is attending today. Indeed, I'm Ukrainian. All this situation with the war in Ukraine is very personal. But still, I'm a practitioner, a tech lawyer, dealing with TMT work, telecom, media, technology all my life. I basically was born in telecom, as I told to Candice. So when the war actually started, we had to start working on the projects which have been totally outside of our reality before. And that was both a little bit scary, but still very interesting. So, and I will give you a couple of examples. So we worked on a data analytics project which involved structuring and efficient use of simply unprecedented levels of data from various diverse sources. And we observed rapid transformation of civil technologies into military ones, and which made them immediately dual use, which nobody observed before. And on that front, again, our observation was that artificial intelligence is probably the most high-profile civilian digital technology that is currently being adopted for the defense use. Obviously, transformation, we have transformative experience with using mobile and satellite networks. As Stacy mentioned, space is the key to defense currently. And especially on the battlefield. So we also, I can reiterate what Stacy has mentioned, that before, like all the weather companies were our clients in a very innocent way, but currently weather focus just appeared to be a very important element in predicted actually the course of the war, which was also not very usual for the tech lawyers. And supply of equipment and technologies of which we have not heard before, and other stuff. So that was happening on our eyes, in front of our eyes, along with what was going on the battlefield, watching the news, following the news. And basically being a tech lawyer always meant to all of us that we need to constantly learn, and we learn on the go. Yeah, it's just because technology is evolving us so quickly, but the speed of learning in this particular case, and speed of learning about digital defense peculiarities, was simply unbelievable for us. And primarily because new technologies, they were created on a daily basis, and given that those technologies could be immediately tested on the battlefield, it made the updates very rapid as well, sometimes hours, sometimes hours, sometimes days. So we had to follow the pace, and that also made it, all of that, very, very personal, especially when you see what is going on, when you know how it's being developed. So very, very interesting. So, and we actually learned our lessons, which we put into our CE digital defense report, and we immediately understood that digital defense is the future, well, both for the lawyers and basically generally. So our lessons, well, the first and the most important is that tech and defense are inseparable forever. And that's what I think Stacy has very clearly and demonstrated in her keynote speech. So if before defense was a prerogative of the governments, now private sector is actually, in my opinion, is the key to innovative and integrated warfare. I think it's absolutely obvious, and this Diana project, which Stacy has mentioned, is absolute demonstration of this. So we, specifically to Ukraine, we now see that the government and specifically armed forces, they are trying to develop their own cutting-edge systems, tech systems, and actually more likely they will find the necessary expertise and capacity in businesses rather than in governmental departments of certain organizations. And those businesses which help them on that front are not always defense businesses, and almost never defense businesses. And obviously cybersecurity is a rapidly evolving concern from all military planners, and that's what Stacy has mentioned as well. So we tech lawyers love to say that now every big business is digital business, every business is tech business. But what I also want to say that probably we are at the stage when we can say that probably every tech business will soon be mentioned as defense business. So tech and defense go together. This will not end. This is just the start. All the projects with NATO is doing, including with Ukraine, including all these educational products, I think also is just starting, and they will be evolving. And Candice, if I may maybe ask Stacy one question, because she demonstrated very clearly and obviously about the role of the private sector in all those developments. Maybe, Stacy, if you can give, because the role is enormous in national security, I mean, maybe if you can say what you think about making SMEs more accessible to the NATO programs, to various governmental programs. What can they do better? Because you have amazing initiatives. and you're funding them. Maybe if there is something, so some recommendation from you for them. Thank you.
So I think that this is a challenge for whether you're in a national procurement or acquisition organization or an international one. And so certainly from NATO's perspective, we do public procurement is more bureaucratic by its nature than commercial procurement. And so, for example, for companies that would like to do business with NSPA, it's necessary that they first register in what we call our source file, but it's also necessary that the nation where they are headquarters endorses them as being a valid company, that it's truly headquartered in that nation, because we do business with companies that are in NATO nations. And we know that it is challenging for companies that have never done business in the public space to go through the process, which is far more, again, I would say bureaucratic, but there's also a lot more involved in the process for those companies. And it's something that you have to learn how to do. And so I think there are a lot of ways that small and medium-sized enterprises can get engaged and get involved. One great way is by partnering with a larger company that has experience. So I've seen some really great examples of consortiums of different companies that incorporate the experienced and the new to bring together their strengths and then create a proposal that's going to meet the needs of the customer. The other way is, of course, to participate in Diana challenges, because the Diana challenge comes along with mentoring, and really having that mentoring, that ability to connect with people who will help them get through the process for the first time, and then they have that experience to then support them in their future opportunities to compete. So you mentioned something, certainly a very, very strong lesson learned out of Ukraine's experience of taking commercial technology and then utilizing it for military purpose. But in reality, most of the R&D in our nations is funded by companies, not funded by government. It didn't used to be that way. It was the opposite. So decades ago, the government invested in technology, and then military or government technology then transitioned to commercial use. But now it's the opposite. And so it's equally the onus is equally on us in the public procurement space to reach out and really understand what the market has to offer and make sure that we're pulling in those SMEs when they have great technologies. So thank you for that question.
Thank you so much, Olga. And please, to the audience, please do not hesitate to put any questions in the chat. Dora, you are the vice chair of CMS. You have been the head of the CEE. You are based in Hungary. You, as Olga, are living the proximity to war, to technology, and so I would like to hear from you about Stacy's and Olga's remarks, please.
Thank you very much. And well, actually, to me, it's always very moving to hear Olga's comments, and it always brings back the memories of how the war started, how we were gearing up, and actually what happened right after. So what I would like to start with is that I do think that this generation has been very lucky. Our generation has been very lucky that many of us did not have that experience up to now. And this doesn't mean that we will not have it anytime in the future. And that was sort of a reality check for everyone. And with digital entering so harshly into the war, and with digital being now an inseparable element for our day-to-day lives, it's just inevitable that it is also becoming an inseparable element of any warfare that is happening across across the globe. I believe that in addition to all the organizations, in addition to all the entities, as Olga is saying, every tech company is becoming a defense company. We truly believe that. We do think that individuals also have a lot of responsibilities, especially in cyber. And also, this is why training education is so important. I also wanted to emphasize that we see that, especially in our part of the world, the spending on defense is increasing proportionally. There are some figures that are doubled over the past 2 years, which can be very threatening for civilians, as well as hopefully very comforting as well at the same time. And we do believe that this element of individuals and how they can contribute is also something that we should be focusing on. As a firm, as Olga said, we have launched a digital defense campaign together with an actual physical defense campaign as well, where our defense specialists work hand in hand with the digital defense specialists in order to be able to cover both angles. And there is one thing where we absolutely rely on everybody, and that is the individual and what an individual can do and what they can do maybe differently next time. So Stacy, my question to you is, what is it that you recommend that individuals start doing or doing more often going forward?
Well, you know, you set me up with a great opportunity to recruit because, of course, the way that that NATO works is that we do have NATO international civilian positions, meaning that NATO actually employs people. Now, you have to be from a NATO nation, so you have to be a citizen of a NATO nation and be able to get a security clearance. But we at NSPA, but it doesn't stop with NSPA. There are multiple agencies who are seeking qualified technical, finance, procurement, administrative IT, you name it. If you look across all of the things that we do, would really just love to see more applications since I'm talking to some fabulous women from women who have great experiences to bring to NATO and to security and to defense in general. So that is one thing, of course. We post all of our vacancies on our website, so please feel free, look us up, NSPA. The other things that people can do, if you are part of a company that has technology that you think is can contribute to our mission or to the mission of our sister agency, we have a place for you to go to send us an email, tell us what your capability is, and we will walk you through the registration process. It's completely free. And even help you figure out how to get all of the paperwork that might be necessary in order to compete. We post all of our future business opportunities on our website, and we post all of our requests for proposal on our website, as long as they are at a certain financial level, which is 80,000 euros. So everything larger than that gets posted. So really encourage you, if you are a technology provider, if you are a small, medium-sized business, or you're an individual, we'd love to see how you can contribute to the deterrence and defense mission of NATO.
You know, I think that this brings up something that is kind of so dear to me, and, you know, that is personal responsibility. And, you know, when I think that my mother sold war bonds, that was her way of contributing to the effort. And when I think of our digital natives, you know, who probably have so much to contribute to this, as Dora said, this rather foreign concept of war, particularly for the digital natives. But if they can, you know, conceive of it in using our digital technologies for something good, I think that we could gather immense benefits. We do have a question from the audience, and thank you so much. And Stacy, this is actually one of the questions I had asked you in our preparatory talks, and that is, does NATO cooperate with allies in East Asia?
Yes, so the NATO alliance, very recently, we onboarded our 32nd ally. So we have 32 nations that are part of NATO, and they are considered allies. And they participate fully through all of the things that I talked about as a customer, but also as a supplier. Now we have what we call partner nations. And partner nations are nations that share NATO's values, that have entered into an agreement with NATO to share information, to share back and forth. There are opportunities for partner nations to participate with NSPA, to participate in general as, again, an official partner nation. And there are several East Asia nations that are part of that partnership. In order for a nation to participate as part of the NSPA, so to participate in our support partnerships, there is a process that we have to go through, and it includes the signing of a document that requires the nation's, usually the nation's parliamentary approval, which means it is not as you might imagine, that takes a little bit of time. But I have spoken to partner nations from East Asia several times, and I see a very strong interest there. The other thing that you might point out is that there are defense industrial capabilities in those nations that NATO might want access to. So the way that our particular procurement regulations work is that we can go to a non-NATO country's industry should NATO companies not have the capacity to respond or not have a potentially unique capability. So we do actually enter into contracts sometimes with companies that are outside of NATO, but the norm or the purpose of the agency is to enter into contracts with NATO allied companies. So as always, the answer is it depends.
Thank you, and thank you, dear audience member, for the question. We're drawing up on the end of our webinar. I am reminded of Yehudi Menuhin, who was at my house right after the wall fell down. Dora, he was, conducting the Hungarica Philharmonica in the Cologne Philharmonic in Germany. And so, Yehudi was also the first Jewish musician who came to play in Germany after World War II. So just, really an amazing gentleman. And so I said, Yehudi, what do you think is going to happen now? And he told me, he said, Candace, I don't know exactly what is going to happen, but what I hope is that NATO will extend its brief to be able to not only work with cyber and space, of course he did not say that, but that NATO will extend its brief to also defend humanitarian and supply humanitarian goals. And I think that, Stacy, I believe that NATO is also looking at this. And we say that, Ukraine is the first space and cyber-enabled war. Is your group also looking at the humanitarian side?
So we, as a customer-funded organization, so as an agency, we support NATO and NATO allies and partners, and we do so as under a customer-funded methodology. That's how we were organized. And so, yes, when requested by either an ally or NATO as a structure, we provide support for humanitarian purposes using the capabilities that we have developed. And of course, from a civil perspective, civil response is equally important because that is all about security and being able to be prepared, and most importantly, resilient. And so one of the things we did was we, on behalf of NATO, deployed several villages. If they were as military capability, they're camps, they're military camps, but we configured them to be villages for families and deployed them to Turkey after the earthquake. And so we have demonstrated that we can deliver shelter, food, sanitary services, laundry and everything that a family would need, including access to common areas for education. So yes, we have demonstrated that that our capabilities are equally as relevant in a humanitarian or in a civil purpose as they would be in a deterrence and defense purpose. So yeah, great question.
Thank you so much. My dad was a NATO Air Force officer. My husband was a NATO diplomat. So I think all of us here on the panel, and I think probably in the audience, do have some personal ties, to NATO. And I think that this webinar today has shown us that each of us can contribute to fighting for democracy, for the force of good, and for trying and seeing how we can truly bring about a peace that is aligned to our values. With that, I thank all of you for a truly inspiring and informative webinar. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to speak to you, and thank you for the great discussion.